Board to order on this 11th day of October, 2022. Please rise if you're able and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing. I'd like to ask that you join me in a moment of silence and remembrance. We had terrible news last week. Our beloved police chief passed away last Thursday. Last Thursday morning, Chief Skrnicki was very dear to us. We worked very closely. We were blessed having him for the last 6 years as our police chief, and he spent every minute of it thinking about how to protect people. He was that kind of guy, very unusual human being. I knew from the start we had a special person when we hired him. Almost didn't take the job. I remember going to the diner and trying to convince him that he would have the support of the town board and we would allow him to run the department as he saw fit. And the reason why I thought he might not take it, because his resume was so extraordinary. His interview with us was so extraordinary. This guy was a champion among law enforcement personnel, having been chief of Nassau County PD, overseeing thousands of people, and having been in a director or supervisory position in pretty much every aspect of policing. And I was concerned that we were too small of a pond for this guy. Let me tell you, he treated this department like it was the most important department in the world. Every day he looked forward to coming to work. He put his entire self into it and put his entire self into keeping the people of Southampton safe. He treated every member of the department with respect. When they did something right, he was so proud. It's like if they were family. And when something went wrong, he was, disappointed, but always compassionate and always worked with people. He was concerned about mental health issues. He was concerned about making sure they had all the right training, making sure they had all the right equipment. He always wanted, what was best for this police department, and he worked really hard to get it. And through his leadership, we did see the department transform into a modern police department, modernizing the communications and the technologies and the training, the policies, the engaging with the community on a level that we've never seen before. Special events, really thinking about how people might try to, with nefarious intent, might try to exploit these events, really kind of thinking of ways, often behind the scenes, you wouldn't even know all the things that they were doing to protect people. It was really extraordinary. Even events like the Hampton Classic or the U.S. Open, a big event, we knew he could do it. He had run security for the debate, the presidential debate at Hofstra. I mean, he had such an extraordinary background. And of course, nothing pulls you closer together than an emergency. And we had lots of storms and things like that, but we had a multi-year emergency with COVID. And he helped shepherd us through that, through the losses, through the fears, and we worked so closely. And it was really an honor for me to have spent so much time with Chief Skrnicki. We became very close, and he kept me in the loop on things like I'd never, and I've been at this for a long time, but nobody's ever kept me in the loop to that degree where, in the past, the news media would call me before I would find out what was going on in town. And the chief always reached out to me and let me know what was going on and conferred with me. I got to meet his life partner, Marianne. I feel so sorry for Marianne and his daughter, Catherine, and his son, Scott, who's a Nassau County police officer. Arrangements are going to be, there's a wake tonight, and I'll give you this information after the moment of silence, but the funeral is on Thursday, and burial. So And I know other members probably want to say something or two, but let's join together. It's tough to even find words when you lose an individual like Chief Skrnicki. He really was one of a kind. It won't be quite the same without him. We'll do our best. I feel like he's still watching over us somehow from where he is now, and we thank him for his service. We pray for his family and just send our deepest condolences to all of his friends and family. It's a big loss for all of us. So let's join together in silence. Please be seated, and let me share with you before we do the roll call and get started with our meeting. And I'll allow other board members if they want to say a word here too. But so the wake is going to be at Vernon C. Wagner Funeral Home. It's located at 125 West Old Country Road in Hicksville. It's starting today at 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. and this evening 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And then tomorrow, Wednesday, again, same hours, same place, 1 p.m. to 3 p.m., 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. The Mass, the funeral will be at St. Martin of Tours Catholic Church at 37 Union Avenue, Amityville, New York. It will begin, it'll be Thursday, that's the 13th, October 13th, and it's 11 a.m. And don't be surprised if there aren't thousands of people. His legacy is broad and long, and he touched a lot of people's lives. And I'm expecting quite a number of people there.
This is on the website. Oh.
It's also, Councilman Bouvier is telling me all this is also listed on the town's website. And then the internment will be at Pine Lawn Memorial Park and Arboretum. That's at 2030 Wellwood Avenue, Farmingdale. So that will follow the funeral. That's all Thursday. I had scheduled a listening session in Hampton Bays for 4 to 6. I'm going to move that 6 to 8 to allow me time to go from the burial back to Hampton Bays. Some people are asking for a later session anyway, so it has that effect as well. So that'll be rescheduled 6 to 8. We'll put that up on the website. 2, we are wearing black armbands in remembrance of our police chief. And with that, board, I know you worked with Chief Skrnicki as well. Tommy John, you were a liaison to the police department. If you want to, I'll start with you if you want to say anything.
Sure. Huge loss for the law enforcement community, of course, here in Southampton town, but not just here, regionally, island-wide. I was at the Suffolk County Legislature this morning, and they had a moment of silence for the chief there as well. So his reputation, his professionalism was well known throughout the island, and we sure will miss him.
Anyone else?
Well, I'm missing him deeply. He was such a compassionate human being. That's about the only way I can describe him, particularly in the work that we were doing with our disadvantaged communities. And he was always there. And he'd answer the phone, and he'd say, "Oh, Councilman Bouvier, my favorite councilman." And I would say, "Of course you said that to all the councilmen." And he was just such a decent human being, and I think it's the best choice we've ever made as a board, to have him running our police department. And his men respect him, which says an awful lot about him. So he'll be deeply missed. I'm certainly going to miss him, and still processing. So,
Right.
So, you know, the older you get, the more you think about passing away, and what you leave is your legacy. And the three most important things to me are your family, you know, being that gentleman you want to be and doing the right things in your life, and your dedication to your community. And he certainly checked off all those boxes. I mean, I've never seen anybody that could walk away. He'd come into my shop and we'd talk like he wasn't the police chief. And there was always great stories about the community and what he had coming up. And he always had his fingers in something. And I honestly can't think of anybody that could have ever done a better job than he did. So we're going to miss him.
Cindy?
Yeah, he was an amazing person, and, you know, you don't realize until after somebody's gone sometimes tragically, and you start hearing the stories of people, and they share what he meant to them, and things that he did, things that you had no idea that he did outside of the police department. Conversations from neighbors to friends to colleagues, just the immense respect that everybody had for him is really a testament to who he was. And he'll be missed.
He was Nassau 42 years and us 6, so 48 years old in public service. It's really incredible. It's an entire life dedicated to protecting people. So it's,
Mr. Supervisor, if I may also
Yeah, please.
say something. He was a consummate professional, and from the moment that he arrived here and you all appointed him to be our police chief, he wanted to be part of this community as well. And I remember when it was time to swear him in, I asked him who was going to swear him in, and he said, well, you are, of course. And I said, are you sure? Because I thought, you know, coming from the background that he did, he probably had many people that could have sworn him in. And I was so honored to do so. And it was the beginning of a friendship because we worked together. He brought a high level of professionalism into our special event application process for security purposes and, you know, barriers. And he really brought a whole nother level to what we were doing here in the town of Southampton to protect our citizens and our residents and guests. And he was just always a pleasure to work with. We shared a couple of common concerns and interests that we used to talk about frequently. And I will miss him very much because he really became part of this community and this town, and we all just developed a tremendous amount of respect and regard for him, and I will miss him as well.
great man. So, thank you, Sunday. All right, Sunday, would you please call the roll?
Just a moment. Supervisor Schneiderman,
Present.
Councilwoman McNamara. Present. Councilman Martell,
Present.
Councilman Bouvier,
Here.
Councilman Scavone.
Present.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of our regular town board meeting of September 27th, 2022.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. Next, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of our special town board meeting, September 29th, 2022.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. And lastly, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of our special town board meeting, October 6th, 2022.
Second?
Seconded by Councilwoman McNamara. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. Okay, let me just take this one walk on before we do communications. It's just one resolution, 41454. It's our 19th warrant. I'd like to add that to our agenda. Make a motion to do so.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That was unanimous. It required 4. So that will be taken up at the end of our meeting. All right, Madam Clerk, would you read our communications?
The following communications have been received in my office of the town clerk. We have received public notices from the Village of North Haven, from the Board of Trustees, Village of Southampton, Zoning Board of Appeals, notification, financial disclosure statement filing from the listed individual, And from the New York State liquor license, 30-day advance notice to local municipality, a new application from the listed entity. From our town fire districts, we have received 2023 fire district budget hearing notices from Bridgehampton, Eastport, Hampton Bays, Riverhead, and Southampton. And the 2023 proposed fire district filings from the same fire departments and districts. Emails and letters have been received regarding the following: the CPF purchase of parcels on Marsden Street, Sag Harbor, illegal crabbing at Mecox Bay, and planning board matter of Lewis Road, PRD, East Quogue, and proposed park at 178 Old Country Road, Remsenburg, Spionk. The following bid and requests for proposals took place on September 28th for 2022 track loader accessories and trailer. And the following report was filed from the Town Comptroller's Office for the September 2022 monthly financial reports. And that concludes the communications for this meeting's agenda.
All right, thank you, Sandy. All right, we are going to move on to public hearings. This is a hybrid meeting, so we are here at Town Hall, and we also are allowing people to participate from home or their offices or other locations through the internet. So we're going to start here. When people speak, we do ask you to fill out a card. There's cards for public hearings and cards for public portion as well. All right. Madam Clerk, would you read the first public hearing notice?
Public hearing number 1, to consider amending Chapter 312 entitled Vehicles and Traffic by adding a new Article 25 entitled Temporary Restrictions for Trial Programs and new Section 312-111 entitled October 2022 Blinking Light Program.
All right, thank you. I'll just briefly describe this. So, whenever we change signage or restrictions on roadways, we do these public hearings. This is part of that 1 week, it's really 5 days, pilot program. I've been working with Councilman Schiavone on with the Highway Department, Police Department, Public Safety, Town Engineering, and lots of others. We're trying to test this idea in the mornings between 5:30 and 9:30 a.m. of if we can get the traffic flowing better by blinking a bunch of lights. And, those intersections where we blink the lights, there's other restrictions we have to put in place because of that. So I'll just briefly describe these are the 6 intersections. Canoe Place Road at County Road 80. We've been blinking that, so people will be familiar with that one. Tuckahoe Road at County Road 39. Tuckahoe, that's the college, if you're not familiar. Tuckahoe Road at its intersection with State Route 27. So that's, again, by the college, but on Montauk Highway. That's State Route 27A, Montauk Highway. Then McGee Street at its intersection with County Road 39. That's near the Tuckahoe School, if you're familiar with McGee. And then St. Andrews Road at its intersection with Montauk Highway. That's 27A. So St. Andrews is the next light east of that Tuckahoe light by the college. And then Station Road, this is in Watermill at its intersection with Sunrise, with State Route 27, Montauk Highway. So that's the Watermill light that frustrates everybody in the morning. So those are the lights. And then the restrictions are pretty straightforward. So we're really, right turns allowed, but there's no left turns for eastbound or westbound vehicles. And no left turns or travel straight through for northbound or southbound vehicles entering those intersections. So that's pretty much it. We have a pretty big program in place to assess the success, the hope success for this program, so that we can see not only the ability to reduce commute times, but also, and I know this is a big concern for Councilman Schiavone, the impacts on these back roads that have been so congested because of the lack of ability to get through on the main roads, the main arteries. So we're going to be a week before, during, and a week after We'll be counting vehicles, and we have a whole bunch of different ways where we're going to measure that. So, and if it's successful, we'll know how much it costs, we'll know how effective it is, so we can look toward seeing if we can do it again in the future, either on a limited basis or maybe in the springtime on an extended basis. So we'll have to figure out how we pay for that and how we staff that. Right? Any questions from the board about the program? Okay, we'll go to the public. Is there anybody who wishes to comment on the Blinking Road pilot program and the restrictions associated with it? All right, Rachel Vernell, you'll have to come forward.
Is she on?
I just wanted to ask before I start my comments. Charlie had given me an email the other day about left turns off of Old Mill Road and also some cones on Little Cobb. Is that part of this pilot program? Is that something different? I don't want to take up the time.
I'm sorry,
To the village.
on
In
Little
Watermill.
Cobb, we are measuring, that's one of the streets that we're gonna measure whether this works.
Right.
So we do have counters there. In terms of cones guiding people in, there's no,
Okay, because
changes there.
he sent an email to me last week and asked for our comments. We talked about it last night at our CAC meeting. I don't want to take up the board's time.
Yeah, Rachel, I believe those are some of his ideas for the area,
But it's
but
not
that
gonna
wasn't
be-
part of this.
Okay, so I will leave that out in my comments. If for some reason you then start to, or I can give you the comments about the left turns, but I'd rather talk to him first, maybe,
Sure.
to sort of clarify. So this will shorten my comments. So I guess, my first question is, I have to ask, why would you conduct a traffic study in October during a time that in no way reflects the conditions of the area during the spring and summer? If a developer or consultant came to this board, came to the planning board with a traffic study conducted off-season, you tell them to come back with a study from July or August. The point of this traffic study, as we understand it, isn't just to see if traffic moves faster. We all know that taking the lights away are going to speed things up, but it's to get an accurate assessment of just how much time is actually shaved off from the morning commute, and to see if people will stay on the highway instead of using back roads. We're assuming that you're also trying to gauge what potential negative impacts are created from this program, and to see if and how those impacts can be mitigated. At this time of the year, probably makes little or no difference to blink that light at Station Road. In the spring, you know that that's all going to change. You have 38 new townhouses that are being constructed right now. Part of the approvals for that townhouse project was actually based on the fact that residents would have access to the light at Station Road to safely make turns onto the highway, and not have to go onto Noadonna that has really terrible sight lines in both directions. You also know that a business like Soul Cycle, which is closed right now, is going to reopen in the spring or the summer. And you may want to add to the mix that there is a cross-access that the town controls from the post office to Station Road that at some point we're hoping will get constructed as a way to get people safely to a light, and also maybe to get rid of left turns out of that post office. You also know that you can ban left turns out of Station Road right now. People can just go over to Noadonna, and you're going to sort of have the same problem all over again with Noadonna. My other comments had to do with limiting the left turns off of Old Mill, which I will save for another time. We also wanted to make sure that the light at Station Road is really the only way for people to safely cross the highway in Watermill. So we expect that pedestrians will always be able to trigger that light, even during the pilot program, even during the early hours. I don't think anybody, in the morning rush, I don't know how many people take.
we'll have a police officer there, so.
So they'll be able to cross if somebody's getting off the, okay. That's sort of it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, I'll make one comment related to the time of year, because there's a lot involved with setting up cones and police officers and things like that. I don't know that I'd want to test this out in the highest point. And there is still plenty of traffic. I mean, the morning traffic, this is just in the morning, but I know Jim's, a lot of you guys are in that traffic. It's lighter than in the summer, but it's still pretty significant. So we should be able to see whether it's having a positive impact or not. Though, point well taken. Anyone else on it? All right, Charlie, do we have anyone online wishing to be heard on this issue?
We have no hands.
Okay. And I just remind the board too, we'll have one more hearing, not on this, but on Shrubland Road, and allowing during this pilot program that left turn onto Shrubland Road. It's just so basically the parents taking their kids to Tuckahoe School, because that's one of the streets, McGee Street, that will be on blink and you won't be able to make that left. They need a way to access the school. All right, so I'll make a motion to close this hearing.
Second.
Second by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we'll move on to the second public hearing. Madam Clerk?
Public hearing number 2, to consider amending various sections of the town code in connection with cannabis dispensaries and on-site cannabis consumption establishments within the town of Southampton.
Okay, Michelangelo Lieberman, senior planner, what are we these days?
Senior planner.
Senior planner from the planning department.
A boy's growing up. Yeah, thank you Supervisor Schneiderman. So back in July, we presented on this and we had a public hearing. We recommended at the time to adjourn as we were waiting for additional language and some recommendations from the state. There's some confusion on where we may be preempted. The state has yet to come out with language, so we're recommending to continue to adjourn this at this time until the state does have the language presented, which might not be till 2023 at this point. But I understand there may be some people from the public who wanted to comment on this.
Would it make sense to close it and not act upon it? Because I'm afraid that the next law might be substantially different, and we'd want to have a fresh public hearing anyway.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Okay.
We could close it and see what the state has, and then we would revamp what we had tried to put forward, pending the state's recommendations.
Yeah, and I still think there's a bit of research.
Yes.
It sounds like the board isn't all on the same page yet in terms of the best, or maybe that's not the right term, but the most appropriate locations for the use.
Okay.
And, I mean, it sounds like other dispensaries are opening in different places around the state, so we might have an opportunity to learn from lessons elsewhere. It doesn't look like we're gonna get there first in any way.
No, well, a lot of municipalities there's kind of two approaches that seem to be occurring. Either municipalities are just passing their own process with the idea that they would amend it pending the state's language, or waiting. You know, we've opted to kind of to wait where the state and see what the state comes out with, see what we're preempted on, and then and perhaps do some more research, hear from the community, and then pursue it.
Okay.
All right.
Any questions for Michelangelo?
Nope.
No. All right, so we're gonna go to the public. I do have, I saw one card on this.
Yes.
Thomas Addison?
Yeah.
Come on up.
Good afternoon. The question or observation I have regarding the non-medical cannabis dispensaries that may or may not be opened, assuming a farmer is now, he can legally grow marijuana on farmland according to the MRTA Act, is that correct?
Well, it's correct if he has a license. New York State has, it's not like tomatoes. Any farmer can just grow tomatoes, they don't need special permission. You do need special permission from New York State to grow cannabis. Right now, the only people that they've given permission to are those who had permission to grow hemp.
Yes.
And that's it. At the moment, they'll probably expand that, I imagine, shortly.
So the question I have, or the observation is if that farm has a farm stand, will that farm stand be treated as a dispensary if he so chooses to sell pot?
I don't, I think the state segregated the growers.
No.
Growers can't.
I see a lot of shaking
Yeah.
heads, so I.
As the law, right, as the proposal stands now, no, the farmer will not be able to sell retail.
Okay.
Wholesale, or whatever, any kind of sell from a farm stand. Or
Even though
from
it's
that
a,
site.
quote, sort of an agricultural product, right?
They're making the distinguish, just as the supervisor mentioned, you have to have a special permit to grow it.
Yeah.
It's not like a tomato, you're not gonna be able to sell it like a tomato.
It sounds like you can't get both licenses. You have to pick one or the
Right.
other, so.
Yeah.
Now, these things could change.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't sure, and
Sure.
I would imagine it would depend on where the farm is. One could be on the highway, which is more commercial, than one on a residential lane, which is more residential. I don't know the zoning for,
Yeah.
I don't know the technicalities.
One could be very close to a school.
Yes, yes.
Well,
Okay,
it's
well, that's
kind of-
all I wanted to
That's
say.
kind of why we're waiting for
Yeah.
the law,
Right.
the New York State law.
Okay.
Because I think they've realized that there's a lot of different situations, and it's really affected what they're
Well,
reviewing.
if I understand, for now, it looks as if farm stands would not be able to sell
And
As proposed right now.
as proposed.
That's-
There's all, in the dispensary provisions, right now, the state has put two locational standards. One is you have to be 200 feet from a church, and the other is you have to be at least 500 feet from a school. So I think the one that you're concerned about is likely within 500 feet of a school, too. So-
Yes, depending on how you define the school. Is it the driveway, or is it
That's typically
the
it's the
first
entire,
driveway, or the?
usually it's the entirety of the
Property
property.
Oh, okay.
property line to property.
Yeah.
And I don't think a farm stand also could meet the security, regulations that you would have to have a dispensary, so.
Okay, well, that's all I wanted to point out. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, I don't have any other cards on this issue.
I
Did-
do have someone.
You have somebody online? I'm going to stay with the audience first, though. Is there anyone else here at Town Hall who wanted to be heard on this issue? Okay, seeing none, Charlie, you can bring your person in.
I think she's in.
She's right there.
All right, can you identify yourself?
For Hugs Inc., Human Understanding and Growth Services, and I'm the coordinator of the Safe and Sag Harbor Community Coalition, the Drug-Free Community Coalition.
Alana, can you just state your name again? We had trouble
Sure.
here.
Let me make sure. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
We're good now.
Okay, great. My name is Alana Urbant Marino, and I'm the Director of Community Engagement for Hugs Inc., and I am the coordinator for the Safe and Sag Harbor Drug-Free Community Coalition.
Okay.
Okay, and I understand that this will be readdressed at a later date once the regulations come through from the state, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, you can count on seeing me again because we are very passionate about this issue and about working to protect our youth. But I would love the opportunity and grateful to speak here a little bit. So just on behalf of local substance use prevention agencies and our coalition and on behalf of the youth in the community, I want to speak to you about the science of prevention and encourage you to consider potential risks to our youth while governing the time, place, and manner of these cannabis establishments that are coming to the town of Southampton. And in the statement that we provide today and in the one that we provide at a later date, we'll have a complete reference list of all of the verified studies that cite the data that we'll talk about. What we'll want to talk about is that research shows that use of cannabis can negatively impact the brain, which isn't fully developed until an average age of 25. And so given that youth are particularly vulnerable to these effects, we want to be careful of how to really be thoughtful of how we put cannabis dispensaries in their environment that they're living in. SAMHSA, which is the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, states that youth cannabis use can disrupt their normal brain pathways that control learning and memory and other essential cognitive functions that reduce academic performance, decrease motivation to maintain social engagement, their motion and motor control, their sleep, reproduction, and long-term fertility. And other potential side effects include altered senses and changes in mood and possible hallucinations. That's especially with high-potency THC, high-potency cannabis products. And so prevention science refers to risk and protective factors to assess where support is most needed. And so the following are huge risk factors for youth substance use and for youth substance use disorder. That a 2018 study found that the closer in proximity youth lived to these retail establishments, the more likely they were to view the drug as less risky and end up using. The location was also more impactful if they had a favorable attitude already toward cannabis. Another study in 2017 found that a greater percentage of youth used cannabis if they lived in an area that had a high density of these retail establishments compared to those youth who lived in a lower density. And in the 2020 iteration of the Town of Southampton Youth Bureau's own Teen Assessment Project survey, 56% of youth respondents reported having no or slight risk observance of cannabis. So they were already viewing cannabis with little to no risk. And so we wonder where might that number go once retailers are setting up in the community. Research tells us that an important predictor of substance use is how risky they believe the substance is to be by the user. And so if youth don't believe that cannabis is harmful to them and their developing brains, they're more likely to use it. So logically, if we work like other municipalities have to restrict the presence of cannabis retail establishments in the areas where they frequent, will protect them by reducing their likelihood of exposure and use and the possible resulting addiction. Other municipalities have had success in restricting these to the light industrial zones. And so when we move forward with this, Hugs and SAFE would love to provide feedback and be a part of, if you wish, be a part of the research and decision-making process, because we want to respect the fact that this is coming to the town of Southampton for adults over the age of 21, while also understanding that we have a duty and a passion for protecting youth at every possible occurrence.
30 seconds.
Okay. Can I ask you one question?
Yeah.
If you can hear me? How do you or Hugs like differentiate the approach to alcohol sales from marijuana sales? Because as you know, bars and liquor stores tend to be in our village centers and things like that, where people are near supermarkets and things like that. And alcohol also obviously damages brain cells and causes all kinds of problems in people's lives through alcoholism.
Yeah.
So I just kind of wanted to hear your take as to, should one be treated much different than the other and why?
Absolutely, that's a really great question. And it's also similar to how we handle tobacco and nicotine products in our communities, right? So we do know that still alcohol is the #1 drug that is killing our young people more than all of the other drugs combined, including now cannabis, even though it is legal for adult consumption in New York State. And what I would say, without having research to clearly identify, but I can certainly look into it for the future hearings and get back to you on it, is that there has been a lot of long-standing history of identifying the issues, the risks of alcohol use, and especially tobacco and nicotine use. We've seen incredible rises in vaping of nicotine products amongst our youth that we haven't seen them using tobacco like that in many, many years. And so I would attribute while we do our due diligence, especially to talk about alcohol and other tobacco use, I would say that the bigger inherent risks right now are that cannabis use, cannabis legal use in New York State is so new compared to those other two substances. And we do know that they are all incredibly dangerous through the functioning in the brains of our youth. And we're kind of working with what we've got with alcohol and tobacco and hoping to not go further down that same dangerous pathway with cannabis. So we advocated for Southampton opting out completely from cannabis use, and it was not the decision of your board to move that way. And so we are willing to work with Southampton in whatever capacity possible to make sure that our youth are protected. And because the information and the research is still developing, but is really showing very similar dangerous effects, we're trying to curb the likelihood that legal cannabis use will increase the dangers and the risks to our youth, like alcohol and like tobacco products.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Charlie, anyone else? Charles?
I have no other hands.
Okay, Alana, we can take Alana off the screen if you want. Thank you, Alana.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak.
Sure. So I guess, board, we have two choices, and we could table this for another month or 2 months. We could end the public hearing. We can always renotice it and rehear it. It might be a slightly different law. At some point, we'll have to put zoning in place, so since we did not opt out, there are a number of companies and individuals who are hoping to establish a dispensary. The state isn't going to issue very many licenses, but there might be one or two, or maybe more. And those businesses are looking to sign leases. They're looking to invest into these properties. And I can't give anybody any guidance because I have no idea how it's going to end up. So I'm just putting that out there. So I'm okay with closing it and reintroducing it when we have something that is more reflective of the board's thinking. We work pretty closely with the planning department to try to come up with the law that's in front of you, and it's pretty limited. It's in turn, it's light industrial zones and. But what else, Michelangelo? There wasn't too much else. I think maybe highway business.
Highway business, and I think we swapped out SEB for EB.
With locational standards, though.
Yes, with locational standards, and that's where there's some confusion on where we may be preempted by the state. Can we add those additional locational standards?
Right, because the states, as I mentioned, was just schools and.
Houses of worship.
And houses of worship. We added, I think, playgrounds and libraries and.
Museums.
Daycare centers, museums.
Several other community functions. We've been in touch with the OCM. We've been asking them for guidance. So they know that we're waiting on their recommendations and their language before we move forward. So I don't think the fault is on us. They recognize, as to use their expression, they're building the plane while flying.
Yeah, I agree, and I don't want to put the cart before the horse until we see what it is that we're working with in law as far as it impacts zoning, and as you said, the state may preempt that. We just don't know. So in the absence of knowledge, I would suggest that we close the hearing and then reopen it when we have a new law and as it's affected what you guys have come up with, and particularly when it comes to zoning. And as you said, has nothing to do with us. In fact, it's not our fault until we know what the state is recommending to us.
Right, and when we fully understand where we're preempted, that will dictate which zoning district makes the most sense. And that's where there's this confusion of where we want to permit it, because we don't really know what we have the ability to regulate at this time.
I agree with Councilman Bouvier. I also believe that we should have a work session on this as well, so we can discuss these things as a board and then put it forward to a public hearing.
For the new,
After we hear back from the state.
I agree. I mean, it's the fact that the state is issuing licenses before they've issued the zoning is the state's fault, not our fault. So I think, I'd rather be more cautious and know what we're dealing with before we say yes to anything. We said yes to, the board chose not to opt out without the zoning in place. So it's not our fault that the state is issuing licenses before they issue the zoning. So.
Well, right, the state wouldn't ultimately do the zoning, we would. But
I understand, but the regulations for the zoning.
It affects our zoning.
Rick, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I agree, we should close it. I'm very, I've always been concerned about the impact on our community, so I absolutely want to get this right. So I think we should close it and find out what the state has to give us.
Okay, before we close it, I just see some more people coming in. Did you guys want to be heard on the hearing related to cannabis zoning?
Did we miss, is it over already?
I haven't closed it yet. We're debating closing the hearing, so, we entertained, just one comment so far. Right now, the board is considering closing the hearing, waiting for New York State, redrafting our law, and then renoticing it. So,
Is it possible to reiterate the position of the board?
Is it possible to what, Lorraine?
To summarize the position, the current position of the
Right now,
board?
it seems like most people want to close the hearing,
Okay,
wait for the state, and then draft new legislation based on what the state puts out, and hear that, which would mean it may be quite some time before we actually have zoning. And I know that I mentioned that there were a number of people who had approached me who are looking to open dispensaries, and that they don't know what properties to enter into a lease on. They're looking at substantial investments in terms of improvements to properties, and it's confusing. And, I might say too, as other towns and other dispensaries open, we may be late in the game, and buying patterns may be established in mail order and things like that, deliveries and things like that. If you want to speak, Lorena,
Yes, can I?
you may, yeah.
Hi, first off, I apologize for being late. I got overwhelmed with the length of the agenda. But Paul and I are both here. We are pursuing a dispensary license in the town of Southampton. We're residents.
I'm sorry,
of
could you
the-
state your name?
Sure, of course. Arena Hankin.
Thank you.
Yes. And Paul Yao is here, my partner, and we're pursuing jointly a cannabis dispensary license in the town of Southampton. We are exploring a number of sites. Certainly, additional guidance would be immensely helpful. Thank you, Paul, for joining me. I think all we'd have to like to say is that I think we're pretty adamant that a site that is completely independent and not, I guess, adjacent to other sites would be ideal for a cannabis venture, so that we're able to maintain security and a secure site. I know last meeting there was some talk of siting a dispensary within a retail strip or a shopping center. I can't remember the exact zone, but we believe firmly that those areas, are frequently habited by families and by young children. And we think it would be more beneficial to the community if a dispensary is sited in a completely independent parcel where we can control security, control inflow and outflows. We're very cognizant and conscious of ensuring that whatever dispensary we site in the neighborhood does not have negative impacts to the local community, so there would be large enough space to allow for an internal waiting area, so there'd be no queuing, there'd be substantial and sufficient parking adjacent to the property to ensure that there are no negative traffic implications of siting a dispensary in the town. So that's kind of our position, that we strongly believe that, having it sited in a highway business zone or LI 40 zone would be ideal in a separate independent parcel where we can control inflows and outflows of customer base and also control traffic and have a really tight security system in place.
Lorena, I'm sure you've reviewed the law as proposed.
Of course.
As written, do you believe that law would allow you to establish a dispensary in the type of location that you're describing?
Sure, as long as it's not close to a daycare or a school or a library, anywhere where families or young
Does such
children.
a location exist? Because I have put in quite a number of locational standards.
We are exploring a site on, is it 27? Which is quite far from any community facility or public park or library or school. We're exploring such a site right now. But we've been told, and we've been reading, and we've heard from the state that the guidance for the adult recreational retail establishments will be published before the end of this calendar year. So there will be additional guidance coming out from the states in the near future. I don't know if it'll be as specific to dictate beyond what they already have stated in the initial legislation. But there are a couple of parcels. We are in conversation with a landlord right now to acquire one such parcel, which is quite far from any areas that are utilized by families or young children.
I mean, it seems to me that when the state rules come out, if a location meets the standards in this law, it's a lot, the state's not going to be more restrictive. If anything, it'll be less restrictive.
That's correct.
So,
No, I totally agree with that, and I guess the question we have for the board is, the licenses which we're referring to in the legislation that we're expecting to come out is in relation to full adult use. But
just for our records, can you state your name one more
sorry,
time?
Paul Yao, Y-A-U.
Okay.
Yeah, if you could speak into the mic, that would be great,
Yes.
thank you.
But the one question I had was, the state received applications a couple of weeks ago for these first round of conditional adult use dispensaries. And one such location you could put these dispensaries in is Long Island. And there's not that many towns which have opted in, but obviously town of Southampton is. So I guess the question we have is, what happens if the state seeks to locate one of these conditional dispensaries in the town of Southampton? Because you haven't actually set guidance yet. But to your point, I don't think that the guidance will be dissimilar from where it's at today. So I just don't know how you would respond to that.
Well, it might work to your benefit, since you guys, you haven't applied for a social equity license, right? Or you have?
We have
You
in New
have-
York City and Manhattan.
In New York City and Manhattan. So
In
the-
conjunction with not-for-profits.
So that first round is going only to social equity, and if we don't have the zoning in place, I guess we're not going to be chosen as for social equity. It's possible, or they'll call us and say, we have a candidate and we're looking to find a place, could you put zoning in place or work with us? But then the next round is the general round, which I think is what you're looking for. So we might have a little bit more time on that. I mean, I don't think the law as written is so bad, personally. I think it's, if anything, the state law will be less restrictive, and they might say, well, you can't have these requirements that it has to be this far from a playground or daycare center or whatever it is. But if it met those standards because we had a tougher law, that could be a good thing.
But the fact is, we don't know. And that's my concern, my personal concern is that we don't know. We don't know what the state is going to do.
I guess what I'm trying to say is that if we were to pass this law and we allowed the one or two dispensaries to meet the standard of this law, and if the state then comes out and says, no, your law is too restrictive, there might not be any more licenses coming to Southampton, so we would have effectively guided them toward the places we would have wanted them.
Or conversely, you could take a lease and the state could come up with more restrictive, we just don't know, or less. In effect, the zoning, you could potentially be in an issue with, if you'd signed a long-term lease.
Well, we expect the state guidance that comes out by the end of this year to kind of mirror the guidelines that are in the card application, which are not more restrictive than what has been published in the merger legislation. So the card application and the requirements for the card license has already been published. So there's no reason to think that anything that the state publishes at the end of this calendar year will be more restrictive. It'll be probably consistent with what they've published to date.
But we don't know that, and
We don't.
that's my concern, because there's a lot of back and forth, and we hear from one side and the other. Legal opinions are very abundant on this subject.
Well, that is around the corner, so there's not a.
So that's what we're, if it's a matter of a few months, then I don't have a problem with waiting, because it potentially could hurt potential businesses. Potentially, it could. That's a concern I have. You get into a situation.
Well, they don't even know if they'll get a license.
Well, that's it.
It's very
you know,
competitive,
it's-
so.
So it's better that you have all the facts before, if I was entering into a business, that was what I would do. I
We
would
also
definitely
think
wanna
citing
know.
a dispensary would hurt adjacent businesses?
I'm sorry?
Were you saying that you think citing a dispensary would hurt adjacent businesses?
No, I'm saying that if you're entering into a new business and then you get preempted by a
Additional
zone.
guidance. I see.
Yeah.
We also, if our zoning, if say we pass this and somebody who wants a dispensary feels that this is too restrictive, we're opening ourselves up to litigation because they're gonna sue us. We had a number of attorneys at our last public hearing. So there's that possibility too. I would rather know what the state and know how restrictive the state's gonna be and zone for what we know we can zone for.
Right, there is some risk involved with that. In that, the state's likely to be less restrictive, and so then the state's gonna make us basically pass zoning that would allow them in a lot more areas, even though the state's only gonna issue very few licenses. So we may end up with a location that would not have been allowed under this law, whereas if we pass this law, that may close the door for future dispensaries, because the state's only allowing one dispensary in a certain area, as I understand it, geographically. So that's the risk we face by waiting, I think. Orenda, did you look at the size requirements in the law in terms, because we limited how big a dispensary could be
Yeah.
as well. Was that something that you felt was acceptable in terms of the viability of a location?
I think the feedback we had was that it was generally acceptable, except for, because I can't remember whether it was 3,500 or 4,500 square feet, and we had a request that a sitting area which would be outside, let's call it a kind of secured zone, would be exempt from that square footage.
Right, so the actual the retail space would be limited to 3,500, whatever, but not the building itself, so that you could have a waiting area.
Correct.
Right. And Michelangelo, is that how we wrote it, or no?
Yeah,
Yes.
pretty much.
Okay, all right. All right, Paul and Oranda, thank you.
Thank you.
Was there anyone else who wanted to be heard on this? I'm sort of mixed on it, but it sounds like the board wants to close it and then reintroduce it. So, why doesn't somebody make the motion? I may not support that, I might rather.
I'll make the motion.
All right, so a motion to close by Councilman Bouvier, is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
I think I gotta abstain, because I think the law was pretty good, and I'm a little concerned that we might end up in worse situation. So, but so it is closed. There is no resolution to approve it. So, although we could vote on it, we don't have a resolution.
There's no resolution in the package.
There's no resolution that's been written, right, Michelangelo? To approve it, all right? So-
No, but based on the last public hearing, the consensus was that we wanted to hear back from the state because it could impact this law.
Right.
That's my reasoning for this.
But now that it's closed, it's technically eligible for a vote, but there's no resolution to vote on.
Correct, and just to reaffirm, we have heard from them, and it's not ready, and it may not be ready until 2023. So.
Right. The fact that it's closed doesn't prevent us from enacting it. If the board decides that this actually is a good law,
Or writing something different, and then also voting to adopt that as well.
Or if we get a preemptive draft from the state with a little more detail in it that we feel comfortable that we can act
Right.
on, that's fine.
They're going to begin their public process soon.
Yeah.
So, and then, of course, they'll have to formally adopt it as well, but even that would tell us where their head's at, and that hasn't begun yet.
no, and I just one other side note, although the state wrote the rules in a way that marijuana sales in the municipality are taxable. I think there's a 3% tax that goes to the municipality. There are no revenues anticipated in the budget from this, so there's no budgetary impact to waiting. All right? All right, thank you, Michelangelo. Okay, so that's the end of the public hearing, so we're going to move on to public portion. I do have a number of cards, people wishing to speak in public portion. First is Jerry Barr. Each speaker is afforded 3 minutes to make their comments known. You can speak on any subject. Anything you hand in goes through the clerk. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.
We just ask that you identify yourself as you begin.
Absolutely. Hello, Supervisor Schneiderman and council members. My name is Geraldine Barr, and I am a year-round resident on Bellows Terrace in Hampton Bays. Pardon my throat, I have allergies. The reason I am here today relates to the name of my street. In 1992, I purchased land designated on my title as 35 Bellows Terrace. Built a house with a C of O in 1994 and paid annual taxes sent to the above address since 1994 through the past billing, and I've received a printed confirmation of that address from your assessor's office on 10/18/21. There are copies of some of these things I'm speaking about and some emails attached to what I've handed out. I give you this background because around 2009, a new street sign was placed on my road as Bellows Terrace Road. Silly error, I thought, and forgot about it. That was until I started getting mail, mainly solicitations, as Bellows Terrace Road. So, in about 2016, while in the assessor's office, I asked how to make a correction to a street sign. And a gentleman checked the files and said, "Road is incorrect." And he would contact the highway department to correct the sign they put up. It was corrected within 2 weeks. But to this day, I receive mail, solicitations, and now also personal business mail that used to address me correctly as Bellows Terrace. Now they all have road affixed to the street name. I have spoken to representatives at the state capitol in Albany, the Hampton Bays postmistress, and the Southampton Highway Department, who all state that Southampton Town issues street names, including corrections. Attorney Christine Scalera granted me a meeting on January 26th of this year, and I sat with her as she assessed my street and deed information on a town site that's not available to the public. All the property deeds listed Bellows Terrace, with the exception of a couple of newly developed residences. I say that's within 5 to 10 years. That's on the easternmost section of our street. It seems that since this section is listed as a private, therefore unpaved road, your computer map has Bellows Terrace Road posted on that section. The rest of the street reads Bellows Terrace on your site. But the older residences in that private road section have deeds that state addresses as Bellows Terrace. After several continued contacts with Ms. Scalera, she suggested in an email, which I have several copies attached, that I petition my neighbors to see what street name they prefer. Well, my reply to Ms. Scalera was that I don't feel it's my job to create a petition in order to correct this error. I believe that someone here at Town Hall has the ability to research and correct the name of my street back to Bellows Terrace without road attached. I would greatly appreciate your attention to this request, and I will be available to whomever may be assigned to this matter. I can answer questions or give further information as to my research into this error and correction. And I thank you for
Just Sherry, so
listening to my...
Bellows Terrace, a portion of it is private and a portion of it is public?
The very end, the very eastern section, I have a map there, it's the best I could find, and I yellowed the street. And when you look on the right end, there's a little loop that goes up and then straight out to West Tiana. That section was a dirt road for many years. As new residences have been built on properties, they have to pave in front of their residence. I believe that's the way it's written. So there are a few sections where you see some pavement, but it's rutted dirt road through a major portion of it. So when Ms. Scalera and I were looking at this site that she brought up, we kind of figured in our conversation, and she agreed with me that, well, maybe somewhere, maybe there was a dash or something that meant it's a road, it's a dirt road here. Because the rest of Bellows Terrace, including all of our deeds, she checked the deed for every one of the properties with me on her site. And they basically, all the older homes, all the main straight section, it's Bellows Terrace. I still receive my mail from Town Hall as Bellows Terrace. I have, in my research, found out that I'm not digitally above everything. I didn't know that there were companies, corporations, that sell and maintain addresses. I spoke to one of them, and he said, oh, they update their addresses periodically. Now, where this first came from, I have no idea. Somebody may have looked at the map and seen the the eastern section, which said Bellows Terrace Road, and posted it on the sign by way of the highway department. But that was cleared up when I brought it up to the
What are
attention of
the-
assessor.
I mean, I'm trying to understand the impacts this is having on the confusion. I mean, I've heard many situations where, people want to change the name because fire or ambulance end up on the wrong street.
That's what
because
I
this
was
is-
told.
But what is at the kind of the core of your concern about the confusion between road and no road?
My deed says Bellows Terrace. With digitizing so much information, I have been told to be concerned and to bring this forward to get it corrected mainly for emergency services.
Okay, because terrace isn't typically the way a street is defined. You have lane, you have avenue, you have
Yeah, you
court,
also
you
have
have
terrace.
road, you have all kinds of different designations. Terrace is a geographical
Is there-
description.
Is there another Bellows Terrace?
Like
Is there a
where?
Bellows Terrace, your Bellows Terrace? Is there another Bellows Terrace Road somewhere else in Hampton Bays?
Not to my knowledge, no.
So there's not two Bellows Terraces with the same street numbers
Not
that
at this
EMS
time.
would be confused of? So,
Right.
so what I'm saying is if
Yeah.
EMS gets called for Bellows Terrace, this is where they're going, whether or not it has the road
Hopefully.
designation or not.
Right, I mean, is it better to be Bellows Terrace Road or just Bellows Terrace?
Well, since it's on all these deeds for so many years, why isn't it left as Bellows Terrace?
Well,
My only concern would be for EMS, but if there's no other, if it's not a Bellows, like, I could see if it was a Bellows Terrace and then, across town there was a Bellows Terrace Road, and it would
right, that
confuse.
could be confusing.
But there's only one Bellows Terrace.
There's a Bellows Terrace Lane and Bellows Terrace Court, it could get confusing.
But there's only one Bellows Terrace.
At this time.
Right, and Jim, I mean, you're sort of the expert on these types of things. Can you provide some sage wisdom?
It sounds, I think Christine must have mentioned, I thought it had been settled that it was, we were dropping the road and it was Bellows Terrace.
Well, that's how she left an impression to me when I spoke with her and when we were initially emailing, that road would be dropped.
Right.
Because most of the homes that are already built have Bellows Terrace. All the deeds to these properties have Bellows Terrace.
Except for the unapproved portion.
Except for that,
That could
yes,
very
and there's
well
only
be.
a
Maybe
couple
that's
of
the
them.
distinction, but we'll-
Because there were old houses there. And the old houses that have been there for 50 years more, they have Bellows Terrace on their deed. So we knew that this was something fairly recent.
Some of the deeds have Bellows Terrace Road, or they all
We,
say
on the
Bellows?
new houses, I believe, we found, and the number may not be right, but I seem to remember there were 2, maybe 3, on the new section,
Jim, does it
the
matter?
eastern section.
I mean, I don't see that.
You have
It shouldn't
meets and
matter as long
bounds
as
on
it's-
your deed. I
Yeah,
mean,
it
it's
shouldn't
pretty
matter
clear.
as long as it's you want a consistency, mainly for, for first responders. and
We want to go back to
male.
the subdivision and see how the town took it in.
Sure, yeah.
Right.
That's the key.
Right.
I'll check with
I just like
Christine
it,
when-
like it to be, well, I'd say one way or another, but to me,
Right.
since so many deeds say Bellows Terrace,
Right, you want to keep it at that.
We
Why
haven't
not?
changed it by any kind of legislative action to Bellows Terrace Road.
that's what I have been told
So we
by,
wouldn't need a legislative action to change it back, since.
but the post office, I went to the post office, and she said, that's how it is on my records, and that's the way it is. I said,
Which?
well, how can we correct that? Well, the town tells us what the names of streets are, and then she shut me down,
So the
so,
post office, I'm sorry.
Hampton Bays.
The post office is saying it's Bellows Terrace Road according
Yes,
to their record?
and now I don't know how
And
they
she's
got that.
saying that the town told the post office?
No,
that
she didn't
the-
say the town told, she only said,
Yeah.
the town gives us the information. I said, well, the town has told me that my deed says Bellows Terrace. She says, well, that's what I have here. It's the town that tells us what the street names are,
So
so.
maybe all we need
I
is a
don't
letter
know.
from the
Right.
town attorney
I would
saying
think
that
so,
it's
Okay.
officially Bellows Terrace.
and that's why I would like
Yeah,
somebody
I
just
thought
to
we
check
had that.
into it and
Yep.
Go forward with it.
Follow up with
Okay.
Christine.
All right, you have a volunteer. Councilman
It's
Martell?
been Bellows Terrace for 50 years, as far as I know.
Yeah,
Thank you.
There was a later subdivision, and there could be as simple as in that map, they called it something else. Because there was a subdivision down by the dirt road end that was done much later. So we'll
Right.
look into that and we'll get in
Okay.
touch. All right?
yes,
Rick's
thank you
no
very
stranger
much.
to Hampton Bays, he'll help you out.
Yes, I know. Okay, thank you so much, I
All
appreciate
right.
you listening.
So, yeah, so you won't need to come here, you just go, if,
Right,
Take
I'll
it.
be
and
in
if
touch.
you're, if you're not happy with Rick's performance, then you can come back.
Who would ever not be happy with
Jerry, we had 4 shore roads in North Sea.
it?
Yes, I
We
know
got it
that
straightened out.
happens in communities,
Yeah.
and that's why I was told by someone in Highway Department that for
Right,
emergency
we can do
services.
If you're gonna speak, it
it's
has to be
important
into the
straighten it
microphone.
out.
Right.
But, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, right, Kevin Debler. Oh, Deller.
Handwriting's horrible.
Oh, it's Deller, right, not a B.
Hi, my name is Kevin Daler. My wife and I are residents of Sag Harbor. I have 11 and 13-year-old boys, and Little League coach, and flag football and basketball, and they all pay the same. But I'm here to thank you for your consideration for potential purchase of the Marston properties across from the Sag Harbor School. I wanted to read aloud a letter that was written by a group of parents and read to the Board of Ed at their last meeting, and I just wanted to kind of reiterate. We'd like to thank the school board for its continued work on securing the priorities of the school in order to provide an outstanding educational experience for the children of the Sag Harbor community. This memorandum is in support of the recently proposed purchase of the Marston properties in partnership with the town of Southampton to ensure open use preservation of the 4 contiguous lots adjacent from the school for both the students and the Sag Harbor community residents. Specifically, our group identified 4 crucial elements in support of this transaction. Pardon me. 1, first, this purchase preserves extremely scarce land within Sag Harbor as an open-use park space for both students and community members. Second, this purchase permanently stops residential or mixed-use development that would create significant septic system impact on our water table. Third, this purchase will increase student safety and productivity for current and future Pearson students, given the proximity to the school. And lastly, this purchase is a demonstration of the value of this community puts on the environment, education, its school, and its children. With best regard, Sag Harbor Community and School Parents Group. Obviously, rarely are these decisions very clear-cut in the use of these funds. As a parent and a coach, and I mentioned just at the Board of Ed meeting, we're all battling these devices, the phones and tablets, and I feel anything that we can do to preserve land, to create more playing space for our kids, to get them more active outside, would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for your efforts.
Thank you.
All right, Carrie Perry?
Thank you for the opportunity to address you today. My name is Carrie Perry. My family and I live in North Haven. I have 2 6th graders at Pearson Middle School. I'm also a coach of Little League, baseball, softball, flag football, the list goes on. And I'm here today speaking on behalf of my kids and I believe many others. We feel that this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to use CPF funds to purchase the Marsden Street property next to Pearson and use it for our most precious resource, which has to be our children. There's, of course, other land we could preserve in Southampton, in Sag Harbor, not a lot, frankly, but virtually none right next to the school that could also serve this important use. Because we're always going to practices and clinics at Southampton High School, East Hampton High School, my kids have asked why those communities have so many fields at their school and Sag Harbor doesn't. Now that this opportunity to both preserve open space and have a new field where the students' needs will be prioritized right next to our school and without the need to cross a whole patchwork of intersections has arisen, many of our middle and high school students are excited, and you can sense their pride when they talk about the possibility. The proximity of a new field where kids can play could also serve as an attractive alternative to the ever-encroaching video games and other electronic devices that gained unprecedented traction with our kids during the lockdowns and subsequent restrictions. I think it'd be a terrible shame if we didn't take advantage of this opportunity for them. Thank you.
Thank you. And the last card I have for public portion is Chris Tice.
Hi, sorry, I've got allergies too. Hi, my name is Chris Tice. I live full-time in Sag Harbor in North Haven. I want to thank all of you for the opportunity to share with you some thoughts I have. I am in support of the town board approving the use of the community preservation funds for the acquisition of the Marsden lots in Sag Harbor Village to be used by the school district. Many schools like Pearson exist in a residential area that are land confined. They're virtually landlocked by the original footprint with not enough property to properly serve students and staff. While surrounding districts like Bridgehampton, East Hampton, and Southampton school districts have expansive outdoor spaces with multiple fields, Sag Harbor does not. And this means that there are very few athletic events that can actually happen on school property. There's almost none. I have 3 daughters that graduated in the district. They all played sports, and almost none of them occurred on school property. The school district has hoped for decades that surrounding property might become available to purchase so that they could expand their footprint and have better outdoor facilities. But nothing material has ever, and meaningful has ever come up until now. The Marsden lots represent the largest potential undeveloped property near the school. So this means it's really a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to expand our physical facilities and provide better space for our students, which they deserve. And I can't tell you how many people I've heard from. I spoke at the last board meeting, and so many people have come forward to me and said, this is a no-brainer. I assume this is going to go forward. And I tell them, we don't know. But certainly we need the support of everyone here at the table in order to make that happen. I do understand that there are some immediate surrounding neighbors that have some concerns about this potential move. But let's look at the facts. Pearson was opened almost 125 years ago. It was opened in 1908, so 114 years ago. While some of the surrounding homes existed, none of the surrounding homeowners owned their houses when Pearson opened. They knew they were buying a house near a school district. I grew up directly across the street from a school where there was no front yard, and literally a car had a hard time driving down when people parked on both sides. So I understand what it's like to live in a school district. And when they expanded fields around the corner, the neighborhood rejoiced because they knew that this is what the students needed. I understand that one of the directed uses of the CPF is to acquire village lots so that they can remain green spaces. And supporting this would mean that instead of having 5 new, expensive, high-end homes built in that neighborhood, there would end up being 5 lots that would become open, green space for the students, your constituents, and also the community at large. And we know that we need more outdoor usable space for the community in Sag Harbor. And I want to note Councilman Mr. Schiavone, because he's an alumni of Pearson, and I know his kids graduated from Pearson as well, and I'm sure he's personally aware that we just don't have efficient and effective outdoor facilities in our district. So I urge you to continue to pursue this purchase. I hope that you support it. This is an opportunity that will not come up again, and our students deserve it. And I think we as a community will regret it if we don't move forward. So thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else who wishes to be heard on any matter? Okay, nobody here at Town Hall, so Charles, I'll go to you. Is there anyone online who wishes to be heard?
I do have Gail Lombardi, but she keeps declining to come in, so.
Okay, we're still in public portion. Well, I'll pause for a second. Gail, if you wish to be heard at public portion, just that raise hand icon and we'll bring you in. And anyone else, just click the raise hand icon.
She's coming in.
Am I on?
I hear you but do not see you yet.
Okay, I'm on my assistive device computer, so it's hard to really figure out to put the video on.
I can hear you fine, so
I just
that's,
wanted to speak a little bit about some of the initiatives you guys are making in some of this development. Supervisor Steinman, at the listening session, you seemed upset that, again, just from my observations, that, someone mentioned you seem like a frustrated developer, but, I've been listening to, especially the past couple of months, especially with the APDOD, a lot of, with building, with zoning for developers' insatiable appetite for development. So, we're running out of space. They need to make money. So we have to supersize their ability to, build. And, the power of the town to zone is given by the state, and it's pursuant to a comprehensive plan, and it's for the benefit of the community. And, I've heard over and over again, including at the work session on Thursday, Janet Shearer say she was approached by developers, and, 15,000 square feet or an acre is just not enough. And it's not your job. And the more that the town continues to do this, we're not really evaluating what is our capacity, what is the number of units, housing units, commercial units, each hamlet could really sustain. What is that number? And until we do a comprehensive environmental review and figure out what that number is, all these initiatives are like dogs off leashes chasing squirrels. I don't understand why we're wasting time and money, including you have a resolution on the board to do another rendering of what downtown would look like in the village business. What is it, what is the town Southampton supposed to look like? Do we know what that is? Because right now it's a bunch of piecemeal. And so it's, when you guys were doing the PDD redo, you put a moratorium on until you figured out what it was. I heard, I think it was Michelangelo talked about, fixing, building a plane when you were, driving a plane when you're building it. The same thing I think it was from Bouvier that said you can't fix a car while it's moving. But right now you're doing zoning in the town of Southampton on a motorcycle texting at 90 miles an hour smoking a joint. I don't understand. So I think you guys need to take a step back and really say, what is it in each hamlet? What's our capacity? What can we build? And back into what we can build, not let the tail wag the dog and have these developers tell you what they want to build. So I'm hoping that as we move forward, this is not the case, but it certainly seems like it's the case. And, we're getting close to, a legal spot zone. So, you have a comprehensive plan, you have the quarter strategic plan. Where is all the renderings for those? Where is all, what's the build out? What's the acceptable build out for what we have? We had organic growth, we have growth from COVID. Where can we go? You have a housing plan without a comprehensive environmental review with sound bites and recommendations. It's unconscionable that you've been entertaining these proposals without knowing what our capacity is. So I'm hoping that you just take a step back, rethink it, say maybe we need to do a comprehensive review of our environment, what we can afford by hamlet, and then start to do appropriate zoning, not go up to Saratoga and figure out what they're doing with their 6-story buildings. So I'm hoping we have some positive change to the way you guys are looking at it. And thank you for announcing about the meeting, Supervisor Steinman, changing, because it's, it's I think on Facebook already. So if you guys could put out a public notice about that time change, so we can start circulating it to people, that would be helpful. So I'm really hoping, that you guys don't waste taxpayer money through renderings for something that may be completely irrelevant later on today, and start looking at things differently. So hopefully that got through. I'm not really sure. Did it? Yes?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That was the first time I tried, so I'm going to try to log off, but I'm sure I'm not sure how.
All right, thank you, Gail.
Okay.
Okay, Charlie, anyone else?
That is it.
All right, I'll make a motion to close public portion.
Second.
All right, seconded by Councilor Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, we don't have anything on Marsden on the agenda, do we?
No.
No. And is there a resolution you're waiting on, ma'am? What's the resolution number?
Well, I was waiting on this, and I'm also waiting on 1049.
You're waiting on, when you said I was waiting on this, what was the first thing? Oh, Marsden, okay. And then, what's the next one?
1049 and 1050.
10,
Page 28.
page 28, 1049, and 1050. These are both notice of public hearings on CPF properties. All right, I can take those out of order, then you can go. All right, I'll make a motion to take 1049 out of order on page 28.
Second.
I might as well take 1048. Can I do one motion to take them both out of order, 1049 and then 1050? I think so. And seconded by Councilman McNamara, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So, Resolution 1049 of 2022, notice of public hearing to consider the acquisition of development rights at 13 River Avenue, Eastport, and to amend CPF management and stewardship plan to include that property. This would be a hearing on November 22nd at 6 p.m. on approximately 5.8 acres of land in Eastport, where we would be purchasing development rights for $800,000 in a farmland preservation target area. It's just a notice for public hearing.
Second.
There's a second by Councilman Bouvier. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. The next one is 1050 of 2022. Again, it's a notice of public hearing. This one to consider the acquisition of lands at 16 Old Country Road in Watermill and amend the CPF management and stewardship plan to include that property. In this case, we are talking about a .4 acre property at 16 Old Country Road in Watermill for the price of $880,000. I'm sorry, Jim?
No.
This is the little
This
triangle.
is the little triangular one
Yeah,
against
it's
the
a
railroad
railroad
tracks and adjacent to the Bird
Bird
property
Right.
That's correct.
in Watermill.
Second.
And this hearing would also be 6 p.m.
Thought you were done.
Yeah,
And
the
it's-
second.
Does it say that these are hybrid meetings? Oh, yes, it does, okay. It does say that, yep. So seconded by Councilman Schiavone. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. Okay. You're free to go.
Or stay.
Or should we stay?
You can stay.
Hang out.
I can't promise you we'll be entertaining, but we'll try. All right. All right, so we're at the top of the agenda. We're Resolution 944 of 2022 appoints John Leonard to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Now, we have tabled this twice for an interview. We've had the interview, but Jim, I don't know that we've had how does that, this would be contingent upon him resigning from the ARB. We can't have him on both boards, right?
That's correct, yep.
Yes.
Do we need to pass this first, or does he need to resign first?
I think if you want to act on it today, you could approve it, and then he could take whatever steps necessary he needs to.
Yeah, the ARB is aware of the pending.
Yeah, I think the zoning board is anxious to get a member, so.
We'll have his letter tomorrow. We'll have him back to you.
Do you want to amend it to just require, contingent upon his resignation from the ARB? I don't mind doing that.
Sure.
All right, so I'll make a motion to amend Resolution 944 to make it contingent upon,
Is there any reason why he couldn't be on both boards temporarily? I don't like the idea, I'm just saying, I don't think, if we appoint him, I don't think we're
I
necessarily
think technically, no,
breaking
it's
our
probably
own
not
code by doing that.
required. But I don't, I would like, I feel like it's
They're not really-
a weird situation.
They're not
being-
terribly conflicting, but.
Yeah, I mean, the ARB is not a land use board in
Right.
that sense,
Sort of
so.
a design board, but, yeah. But I think we all are aware that he is stepping down from that, so, I mean.
Yeah.
it seems
As
like
well
he's
as
gonna be a
both
good
chairs
member
of
of the ZBA, so give him-
both boards.
Go ahead.
All right, so I'm going to make a motion to make it contingent upon his resignation from the ARB.
So we're going to add that language to the resolution?
Yeah, we would add that too. What's it?
And just make it further resolved that such appointment is contingent upon Mr. Leonard's resignation in the ARB.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's fine.
That's beautiful.
All right,
Perfect.
do I have a second on the amendment?
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now make a motion to approve as amended.
Same second.
And just on a word, he's proved to himself on the ARB. He's been a good member. He's an attorney. I guess he's living in Hampton Bays. I think he lives and works in Hampton Bays and does a lot of volunteer work in the community. And he's expressed an interest in being on the zoning board, filling the vacancy that's actually been there for quite some time now after Cornelius Kelly resigned. So I put his name forward, and I hope you've all had an opportunity to meet Mr. Leonard. And it does meet all the requirements in terms of the composition of the board, so that's all been checked. So we had a motion and a second. Any discussion?
No.
I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
Town board resolution.
Hold on, that was approved as amended. Just making it clear. That was a
Okay.
motion to approve as amended. Okay.
Town Board Resolution 1025 of 2022, co-sponsored with Councilman Scavone, to accept the grant from Suffolk County Water Quality for Riverside Sewage Treatment Plant, STP, authorized allocation of matching funds, and supervisor to enter into an intermunicipal agreement with Suffolk County.
Second.
Second by Councilman Scavone. Just note that I'm also on this resolution.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
Yes, you
okay,
are.
no worries.
Oh, I didn't see it, sorry.
That's okay.
Just trying to move along.
All right. Okay, well, this is for $250,000. Yeah, all right, so we had a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. You can read this one, Jim.
Can I? You want to read it for me?
No.
Which one is that? Okay, Town Board Resolution 1026 of 2022, co-sponsored with Councilman Scavone, to authorize additional payment to D&B Engineers and Architects PC for the construction manager to oversee various trades at the Nathaniel Rogers House.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Do I read this one?
You want to read it? 1027 of 2022, authorize supervisor to extend agreement with D&B Engineering and Architects, PC, for the brownfield cleanup program remedial site investigation for the Damascus landfill.
Second?
Seconded, I hope we're able to recapture some money here. It's just very expensive. Seconded by Councilman McNamara. Remember, this is a site that we originally, when the DEC were doing they went to these inactive landfills and did some water quality tests and told us that there was PFAS and we spent an awful lot of money to basically determine that this is not the source of the PFAS. It's been designated as a brownfield. We're trying to get the thing to a point where we can do something with it, maybe a solar array or whatever, but that one call from Carrie Meek Gallagher several years ago has really cost us a fortune. We spent a lot of money complying with their rules in terms of site characterization and investigation. I'll be happy when this is behind us, but this was all unanticipated spending that we've had to deal with for that former landfill site. Anyway, there was a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 1028 of 2022 to authorize the purchase of a backup services solution.
Second.
Which came first? Councilwoman McNamara is seconding. You're the backup second, so backup services. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. 1029 of 22, authorize supervisor to sign contract with Historical Concepts for professional concept design and visioning services for the Hampton Bays Hamlet Center.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman McNamara. That we did just have some testimony related to this. I think it's really important that we get some professional services involved in downtown Hampton Bays, helping understand development based on current zoning and whatever the community envisions for future zoning. So, motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I will abstain for that.
Okay, so will the clerk note Councilman Martell's abstention, and the resolution is approved.
Town Board Resolution 1030 of 2022 to authorize the 2023 renewal of ESRI Incorporated for software licensing utilized in the GIS division.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Town
Approved.
Board Resolution 1031 of 2022 to authorize the purchase of a 2023 Chevrolet Silverado 1500 Crew RSD four-wheel drive from the New York State OGS contract with Buzz Chew Chevrolet.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman McNamara, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 1032 of 2022 is to authorize the supervisor to sign an intermunicipal agreement with the town of Brookhaven for C&D street sweepings for the town's municipal works department.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman McNamara. I don't know how long Brookhaven will be able to continue to take this stuff, so. But,
At least through next year.
This is
These are
through-
the tipping fees
Yeah.
The cell is closing.
Yeah,
involved.
it might go up quite a bit after.
If they have to transport, we're faced with a serious issue
Yeah.
next year.
The last
Well,
one
yeah.
open on my house.
Exactly. All right, so we had a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 1033 of 2022, co-sponsored with Councilman Scavone, to authorize the supervisor to execute a 2022 contract extension with the Research Foundation at SUNY Stony Brook for water quality improvement project funds.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 1034 of 2022, also co-sponsored with Councilman Scavone, is to authorize the supervisor to execute an agreement with James Walsh Land Surveyor PC for a survey for properties at 426, 432 Main Street, and 1827 Sag Harbor Turnpike, Sag Harbor.
Second.
Seconded. John, you had tabled this one in the past. Is this,
We're good now.
you're okay?
Yep.
All right, seconded by Councilman Scavone, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved. 1035 of 22, authorize the supervisor to sign a First Amendment to the professional services agreement with Leonard J. Marchese, MBA CPA, to include the Fire Island to Montauk Point Coastal Risk Reduction Capital Project.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. This is for FIMP. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 1036 of 2022, award and authorize supervisor to sign contract for track loader accessories and trailer with All Island Equipment Incorporated.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. This is for highway. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved.
Town Board Resolution 1037 of 2022, co-sponsored with Supervisor Schneiderman, recall and amend Town Board Resolution 2021-1158, authorize supervisor to sign contract extension for utility task vehicles with Motorcycle Mall Incorporated.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 1038. Now recall and amend Town Board Resolution 2022-790, authorizing purchase of Toshiba copy machine.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman McNamara. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved. That was just a Scribner's error being corrected. 1039 of 22, co-sponsored with Councilman Schiavone, accepts donation for Southampton Town Police Department. This is a $25,000 donation from Leon M. Wagner.
Thank you. Second.
Very kind. Seconded by Councilman Schiavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. 1040 of 22, co-sponsored with Councilman Schiavone, amends the authorization of the purchase of Ford Police Interceptor vehicles utilizing NYS OGS contract for Celebrity Ford LLC, doing business as Bayer Ford to Nielsen Ford of Morristown.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Schiavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 1041, deposits money into escrow account for professional services in connection with the Lewis Road planned residential development subdivision site plan application.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman McNamara. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 1042 of 22, co-sponsored with Councilman Schiavone, resolution of adoption amending Town Code 312 entitled Vehicles and Traffic by adding a new article, Article 25, entitled Temporary Restrictions for Trial Programs, and new sections 312-111 entitled October 2022 Blinking Light Program. We held a hearing earlier on this. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Schiavone. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 1043 of 2022, authorize attendance at the New York State YMCA Middle School Youth and Government Conference in Albany on November 20th to 22nd, 2022.
Second?
Seconded by Councilwoman McNamara. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 1044 of 2022, authorize conference attendance for Youth Bureau.
I don't think we voted.
Second?
I thought I said all, are you saying we didn't vote on the last one? On 1043? I thought I said all.
Maybe I missed it.
We did.
Okay.
Yes, I have it as well.
You have
We
it?
Oh, do
both
you?
have it.
'Cause
So
I-
that means,
Okay, very good.
Because I thought
I
it
don't
was
have
the
it
other
here.
one red. Sorry.
Okay, so 1044, we had a motion and a second,
Second.
correct?
Any comment, Tommy John? Because I know this is your,
who's the second?
Well, I was
Me.
wondering whether I should vote on it, but I did.
no.
So, Councilwoman McNamara seconded 1044.
Close.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 1045 of 22, attendance at In Omnia Paratus Group LLC SWAT training.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Schiavone. I think there's 14 officers attending. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved. 1046 accepts resignation of Bruno Murata, Records Management Assistant in Town Clerk's Office.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 1047 of 2022 to authorize Fire Marshal Ryan White to attend the New York State Fire Academy Vehicle and Electrical Fire Investigation course on October 17th through October 21st, 2022 in Montour Falls, New York.
Second. Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 1048 of 22, co-sponsored with Councilman Schiavone, notice of public hearing to rebuild the Bridgehampton Senior Center at 585 Bridgehampton, Sag Harbor Turnpike, and authorized by local law the addition of 16 residential workforce units as per Town Code Section 330-8. This would be a hearing on November 9th at 1 p.m. to consider at the property we own, which is around 3 acres, I believe. I'm looking for the number. Yeah, 3 acres. And where our senior center is on Bridgesag Turnpike, that we would redevelop the site with some sort of sewage treatment, IA type of system, a new senior center, as well, senior community center, as well as 16 affordable units. And we believe it'll be self-sustaining in terms of the rents, offsetting any debt service that's incurred. And, but this is a hearing on the potential use of that property for that purpose. So, seconded by Councilman Schiavone. This also will be, this is Wednesday, November 9th, 1 PM, also hybrid if you want to comment that way. So seconded by Councilman Schiavone, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approved. I'm up to 10.
Page 31.
Yeah.
Thank you. We did the next one. And then we did the one after that, so we're up to, on page 31, 1051. This is 1051 of 2022, deemed draft environmental impact statement adequate and scheduled combined secret zone change public hearing for the application entitled The Preserve at South Country Road for a change from CR 40 to multifamily plan residential district, MFPRD, on a 17-acre parcel, proposing development rights of 100, I'm sorry, not development rights, proposing development of 104 units at 6 units an acre of affordable rental housing in the hamlet of Quiog.
We didn't change that to up to?
I'm sorry, Cindy?
We changed that to up to 104 units?
Well, they are proposing 104 units. We are not
It's their-
required to
It's their application that
approve.
we don't need to.
That's what they put the application in, and, you know, obviously, as we consider mitigation, we don't have to approve it at all, but if we do approve it, we don't have to necessarily approve it at the density that's requested.
Second?
All right, seconded by Councilwoman McNamara. Any discussion? All right, I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Again, that just says that it's ready to be routed for public comment. And if we find that its questions aren't answered to our satisfaction, we can get additional information. All right, I believe on page 37.
Town Board Resolution 1052 of 2022. This is to adopt a negative declaration for Noyak Road pedestrian improvements.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. So this is a section of the sidewalk, or is in general the whole thing?
This would be the whole thing, even though we're handling it, or we're looking at it in 3 different phases. But this would be the whole project.
Okay, it's a sidewalk. Huh?
Yes. And in a constrained right-of-way that we have there, it could also be used as a bike lane, and we are seeking grants from Suffolk County to help us fund this in Noyak. We've already received grants from New York State at $250,000 for this year, and we are evaluating the RFPs, and we're going to be looking at them this week.
I think there's money in the budget for this project, at least a piece of it,
Mm-hmm.
in the proposed budget.
Yes.
Phase 1.
Phase 1, yeah. All right, so, so was there a second on that?
There was John Bouvier.
Yes, I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. All right, we have the one walk-on. 41454. It's warrant number 19, capital 19, CPF 19, and payroll liability.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye, approved. Okay, that is the last resolution. Is there any other business? We have posted on the town's website the information regarding the wake and funeral for our beloved chief, Chief Stephen Skrzynecki. And I am sure most of you will try to go. We will look to do a local memorial service. I'm going to work with our captain and with the family to do something locally here at some point in the not too distant future, so we can remember him here as well. But I do expect there to be quite a number of people going up from the town to the wake and to the funeral, so it is very tragic, but we'll miss him. All right, any other business?
Just want to let you know the listening session update time is on the front of the town website, so it is posted.
And we are postponing the work session till Friday, correct?
Thank you, Rick, for that. So yeah, the Thursday's work session is being moved to Friday at 10 a.m. And the press sessions also had, because I was going to be at that, I think it's on housing, I believe.
It's on the Community Housing Fund.
It's on the referendum issue, and that's also moved to Friday. That was going to be Thursday at noon, and I'll be participating in that.
And the water district.
The Water District meeting, Hampton Bays Water District Commissioners is moved to Friday as well at 10 o'clock.
And
It would have been Thursday.
I won't be here because I had prior commitment out of town that day, so.
Understand. Okay. Anything else that's important? A lot of this will be at the town's website, right? Okay, all right. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.